Hi, and welcome back to this week's segment of the Branding Storm WeVent Network. I'm Andy Greenberg, and with me is
Joe Moore.
And two questions for this segment. Question number one, what type of an impression does your marketplace have on you? And number two, what kind of impression do you have on the marketplace? Because the word impression has two different meanings, which are very critical to your success in your branding. Joe, let's talk about that a little bit. When we say impressions, what do we mean?
Well, impressions could be the number of spots or impressions that people see of your brand,
Right.
or it could be what they think of your brand. What is the emotional appeal of your brand?
Exactly right. What is the feeling that they have? Now, you mentioned a number of spots. Are you suggesting that someone buy a lot of TV time, or are there alternate ways of doing it?
No, we've talked before about multi-channel,
Okay.
and that's really what we want to do is distribute amongst TV stations, radio channels,
Right.
newsprint, direct mail, email broadcasting, internet exposure. There's the multi-channel approach that we're really talking about.
And that becomes a challenge to understand exactly which ones to go through. So, Joe, what's the first step in understanding which one of these multi-channels to use? And for example, on TV, what TV station, or on radio, what radio station? How does one figure out which one to go to? Because we certainly don't want to keep it to one.
Exactly. Well, first off, you got to understand your market.
Okay.
And you got to understand who buys your product or service.
Right.
What are the age groups? What are the income groups? Are they married, single, students? Once you understand that,
Sure.
then you can match that demographic or psychographic information up with the radio station that matches that same
Okay.
makeup. The biggest trap that people fall into is when they listen to a particular station and they put all their spots on that one station,
Right.
the ones that they listen to.
Right.
Well, you're not buying your own product.
Right.
You want
Right.
customers to come in, so you want to put them in the stations that those customers are listening
Right.
to.
So one of the things that you really want to understand about your customers is, number one, where do they go for their visual entertainment? Where do they go for their audio entertainment? And where do they go for their internet entertainment? And that's exactly where you want to hit them. Now, at this point, you're probably saying to yourself, well, I can't afford any of this. I mean, this is multi-dimensional. This is going to cost me a fortune. But yet there are ways to do it that fit within your budget. Joe, let's talk about that.
Well, again, when we started this series, we talked about building your business plan.
Right.
In that business plan is a budget, and that budget has to be fixed so that you count on spending that just like you do your office lease or your equipment lease, whatever consistent expense that you have.
Right.
And then you move into execution side of this.
Okay.
First off, persistent consistency is the rule of thumb that we work with.
And what does that mean, persistent consistency?
Well, this is the biggest problem that people have in trying to do marketing themselves, is understanding the look, the feel, the color, the texture of their brand has to be the same every time they look at it. Every
Right.
time they put it out there, it has to be the same. So it's called brand management.
Okay.
And so you've got to be able to manage your brand.
Right.
And most people can't manage their own brands because they get emotional with it.
Yeah.
They get emotionally attached.
Sure.
And so they change because they feel differently one day versus the next. So a brand manager will be more objective and stand back third party and make sure that it maintains that level of consistency.
So it's basically like we talked about once before. You hire an accountant, you hire specialists to help you in the field. But it is as important to have someone who knows marketing, who knows branding, represent your business and your customers' needs. Because as mentioned earlier, we all have a tendency to attach ourselves to what we think is best.
Right.
And many times that simply does not work. Now, in brand management, there's also something called a trigger. And a trigger basically says when they hear that you are about to put a spot in any one of these multidimensional avenues that's available, that spot should trigger a call to action. That spot should have an emotion attached to it where they are having a desire created by you, by your message, by your brand, to go out and buy your brand, to go ahead and find it, to go ahead and search for you and get your products that you offer. That's all part of that mix. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where a lot of people confuse marketing and sales.
okay, expand on that, Joe, would you?
Well, marketing is putting your brand out there just to fill some space and to remain top of mind.
Sure, sure.
Sales or action-driven activity can help drive revenue.
Sure.
And a lot of people are afraid of marketing because it costs money, but they
Right.
love the revenue side
Sure.
because that's what makes the
Yeah.
thing work.
Absolutely.
And so by mixing the two together, you can actually create a brand by driving
Right.
revenue.
So basically speaking, when you have a salesperson or yourself, and you mention the name of your company, marketing pre-sells it. And that impression that we talked about earlier evokes an emotional reaction. Always should be a positive one. And as we conclude, I want to have everybody remember that sometimes people say, you know what, we hate advertisement. But yet, once a year, people get together and they look and they study and they analyze and they respond to Super Bowl advertising. Now, we're not suggesting, nor implying, nor inferring that anybody should advertise on the Super Bowl, but we do want to show you the impact of having a consistent, multi-dimensional message. And the way to do it is when you do your plans, go from the bottom up. Understand where you want to reach everybody, what you want to tell them, the frequency, the impression, plan a budget around that, put it into your business plan, and go ahead and execute it. That's multi-dimensional. That's the impression you leave upon your marketplace and the impression they leave upon you. I think you've got an expression for that. It's called the everywhere
brand.
everywhere brand. No matter where they go, they know you're there. And by the way, we're here and we'll be back for our next segment of the Branding Storm WeVent Network. Thanks for joining us.